Jason, it's good to see you, man. How are you this week?
Yeah, doing good, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Can't complain. It's hot here in Nashville, which I'm okay with. I'm not ready for fall weather just yet. But I know you're in Minnesota this week. What is it still summer there, or is it starting to crisp a little bit?
Yeah, it's nice here. I'm from originally from here, then moved to Naples, Florida, which is, if it gets below 50 degrees, that's like a news story. But I left Naples a couple days ago to come here for a month, and I left 85 degrees, came to Minneapolis, landed yesterday, 85 degrees. But the
Okay.
difference here is it doesn't last long. So within a few days after recording this, kind of end of September, it'll be in the 50s and 60s. It's kind of the best time to be up in the upper Midwest. The leaves change colors, get pumpkin stuff and
Yep.
apple orchards and all that stuff. That's kind of when you want to be here. So
Yeah.
I intend to fly home well ahead of the first snowfall. So
Yeah.
uh, hey, I put in my time. I lived for over 40 years in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I like anyone say like I'm a wimp about snow or cold. You bet. I put in 4 decades. You do
Yeah.
that, and then you decide.
Yeah. You earn the opportunity to come south.
Yeah, yeah. My in-laws are down here, so it gives us a chance to support them. So no, we're happy to be there. It's a great community. But I've always loved Minneapolis and love coming back.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. This time of year, as you get close to October, it's really kind of the perfect time to travel anywhere. Because, like you said, the Midwest, Upper Midwest, the fall kicks in, pumpkins, football. But we actually usually we do our Florida vacations at the end of September, early October. Besides the threat of hurricanes, which we actually dealt with last year, it the temperature is usually perfect during the day. At night,
Yeah,
it's a
it's
little
nice.
cooler, not as many people down there, and so we've learned that Florida at the end of September, early October is kind of our little secret time to go, and it's very much enjoyable.
It is nice. Yeah, you got to watch out. If a hurricane's rolling through, you gotta adjust. But yeah, I mean that's why we're here during this time. Is we come up to our Minnesota apartment you know, sometime in August or September. We go back sometime in October. And, there's that peak of the hurricane season that hits right between September 15th and October 15th or whenever. Someone will correct me on that. But yeah, we just opt out of that. The
Yeah.
weather's perfect here and can be kind of crappy there. Works for us.
Yeah. No, that's perfect, man. That's perfect. Well, man, Jason, thank you so much for taking the time today. And it's been really cool. You and I connected a while back, probably over a year ago now.
It's been a while.
I actually, Books for Guys has evolved, like we were talking about before we jumped on here. You've written another book, and when it came out, I was like, I need to connect with Jason. We got a lot to catch up on and a lot to do. And so I've got two of your books here. One of them I've already read, and that's Booze Babe and the Little Black Dress. And I'll kind of post that. That one's actually already on the Books for Guys website. And then your latest one, Bullfrogs Bingo and the Little House on the Prairie, which came out this year. And you've also got the marketer in chief, how each president sold the American idea. Um, but man, talk a little bit about, because your background, marketing's been your forte for your career, and then you kind of broke out on your own to consult and coach and work with a lot of big companies. But man, just kind of talk about your background a little bit and how you were so interested in these different eras and how that translated to marketing and just kind of everything you do and are about.
Yeah, it sounds great when you put it like that. Uh, I was kind of a geeky kid. I was just interested in everything. Uh, uh, you know, when I love to tell this story. When I was in eighth grade, this story tells you almost everything you need to know about where I come from and why I'm interested. Uh, I just seen Top Gun. I'm of that age, and was excited about it. And I did my science fair project on stealth technology, like the B 2 stealth bomber and the stealth fighter and all those things were really cool back then. And uh, there wasn't a lot of information about that. You couldn't just go to the local library and get information. So I wrote to Popular Mechanics. I wrote to the Air Force. I wrote like all those places. They sent me information, just their public information. Sent me, say it's a little kid doing a thing. So I put up my science fair project, and I had all this information on the board, and it's going great. I really love doing it. I, I, I really understood like how stealth technology worked. I even built a model of what testers called the F-19. They had no idea what the thing looked like, but it was this good, kind of teardrop looking model. This story
Yeah.
does have a point, by the way. It's funny, trust me.
Yeah.
There's a payoff, Chris. There's a payoff. So I had my whole board like you do. I don't know if kids still do science fairs. I
Yeah.
don't know, but and I said on the board like, hey, here's how stealth technology works. And this model that I'm showing right here can't possibly be it, because stealth technology requires these like flat surfaces to absorb and reflect radar. And my science teacher pulled me aside after the science fair was done. It was still up in the basement, but she pulled me aside. She's like, wow, you got an A. The thing's awesome. I actually learned a lot. There's actually a guy from the Air Force here. And he came by and he loved the project so much, he pulled me aside and asked if he could take it. He just wanted to take it and show it to his folks back at the base, Air Force colonel. I'm like, come on, as like a 13-year-old kid, that's the coolest thing that had ever happened to me,
Yeah.
But I didn't meet the guy, nothing. And like, you kind of forgot about it. So 20 years later, I'm reading Ben Rich's book on the skunk works, Lockheed Martin's skunk works.
Yeah.
And I'm reading the book because my whole career has been on product innovation, that side of marketing, developing new products. That's my thing. So I'm reading in the book, and I get to a page on the F-117, the stealth fighter.
Yeah.
And they were having problems in the 1980s. That's what the book says. Like, hey, technology was like information about that technology was getting out into the public.
Hmm.
And they were really freaked out. The Air Force colonels were sent across the country freaking out about the top secret information getting out. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Nothing occurred to me, by the way, at this point. Then I get to a paragraph in the book that says the most egregious example was a kid in Minneapolis, Minnesota, had a science fair project with top secret information
Your
on his
project.
board, my project, and they confiscated it. They never told me nothing. So what I'm saying is to all of your listeners, I'm on a list somewhere, probably several lists of people to watch out for. So take everything what I say with a grain of salt. I have spent my entire career learning about engineering, learning about history, and that's kind of how I got involved in history. Was you trace patents backwards. If anyone has ever done any patent research before, what you realize, you look at a patent, and every patent is based on a patent before. You have to cite to tell you, like, hey, my patent is different because it's different than these patents.
Yep.
So you're going backwards, and you have to research this stuff and you have to understand it. And the stories about the people and what they did was way cooler than the patent.
Yeah.
So I've spent my entire career learning about this stuff. I'm interested in everything without exception. Like,
Yeah.
you name it, I'm interested in it. And that's kind of the secret to like, well, why do I write books? It's to kind of scratch an itch.
Yeah.
Boo's Babe and the Little Black Dress is about the 1920s. Bullfrogs Bingo and The Little House on the Prairie is about the 1930s.
Yep.
And I got the one I'm working on now is about the 1940s, kind of that 3-decade period in consumer culture. So that's about me. So if you're wondering why the heck is this guy here, I'm on a list.
Yeah.
So
That's a
buyer beware.
yeah. No, that's a crazy story. And yeah, kind of weird. Like someone super cool, someone from the Air Force takes your project. You're like, oh, that's great. But then, yeah, who was it? Why didn't they want to talk to me? Oh, I had top secret information that I found about in a book I was reading 20 years later. Makes it for a
Crazy,
pretty
man.
great story. It's that makes it that much cooler, actually. Like there's a lot of mystery there.
Yeah, you know, I had I talked with someone kind of as more in government intelligence, and he said, yeah, you should file a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, because it's
Yeah.
probably not like classified anymore. If it's classified, they'll flat out refuse it.
Yeah.
But he's like, you should know what they got, and they'll have to share with you
Yeah.
all of the, like, hey, where did they put it? The photos they took. They'll have to share all that with you. And I kind of want to do it. I haven't done it yet, but I think I'm going
Yeah.
to do it.
Maybe you can get your project back.
I don't know. That'd be the coolest thing. I have no idea like what warehouse in Washington D.C. it's
Yeah.
hidden into. Maybe right next to the Ark of the Covenant,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure I'll have to ask top men to find
Yeah.
out where that was.
Yeah. It's got to be somewhere. I mean, surely
I
they
don't
didn't
know, man.
destroy it. It's sitting somewhere.
It's in a warehouse.
Yeah.
Your tax dollars at work, folks.
Yeah. That's that's just mind blowing. Obviously, I did
Crazy.
not know. You and I have never talked about that story before, so that's really cool. Well, kind of cool, I get. For me, it's interesting.
It's cool. It
Yeah.
was cool for me. It was definitely something that I think tells you more about me than you ever needed or wanted to know. That's the kind of kid I was, and I'm just a 50-year-old, 13-year-old. That's all.
Yeah. Well, it's super interesting. I mean, the books you're writing, you're kind of taking a little bit of a different approach to your marketing and writing about these eras. And you kind of you answered one of my questions I was going to ask you is where you're going to continue writing books kind of in order for the next decade. And it sounds like you're already working on another book there too.
Yeah, I want to kind of capstone that. What I learned, actually, when I was writing Marketer in Chief, when I did that, I kind of wrote about each president. So that's like
Yeah.
250 years. And I got to the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And kind of like most of us, we learned about World War II and the Great Depression and stuff, but it was kind of like you learned about it pretty quick, right? I mean, that was kind of towards the end of the semester that probably a lot of that time got cut off anyway. And what I learned is how little I knew about the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and how little I knew about like how much product innovation was done during that time, how much
Hmm.
marketing innovation, the first radio advertising. There was so much that happened
Yeah.
during that time that I knew nothing about. So I said, you know what? I'm going to write a series of 3 books about this that cover it. Because once you get to the 50s, like there are still people alive who were, and there's obviously some folks who are, who were alive in the 1940s, but that number is shrinking pretty fast, right? But there are a lot of people alive in the 50s. I'm like, I don't want to write about living memory stuff. I want to write about things that are clearly history,
Yeah.
and so I'm capping it off there for kind of like a trilogy, and then we'll see what's next.
Yeah. Well, you had me fascinated reading it because honestly, you had me, well, it, not ticked off, but I started looking around at all the things we buy. And I was just like,
Yeah.
all the marketing and just all the stuff that we get sold on. And just thinking now, just as I was reading about that era, just how things started happening like that, and then where we're at now, and how so much of a consumer society we are on things. It's not a bad thing, but it was just so interesting as I was reading your book. I was looking around, I was just like, man, this is crazy. How all this kind of got started. And it was just kind of, I was taking it from that time and looking at it through my lens now, which again was very intriguing to me. And I was just like, wow, this is wild.
You know what really struck me about, especially the 1920s, and consumer culture was really born in the 1920s, and most people think about that as kind of a negative thing, right? And there's a lot of negative about it. How much we get sold, and it maybe sold a lot of things we don't need.
Yeah.
Yada yada. There's a lot of that goes down that. But what really was the trigger for me? I don't know. Some of your readers might be familiar with Thaddeus Russell. He wrote a book called The Renegade History of the United States. It'd be a great books for guys sort
Yeah.
of suggestion. It's the kind of book that a guy would like to read, you
Yeah.
know?
Cool.
And I was reading that book, and there was a very short chapter in there, and it was on the Roaring Twenties. And basically, his point was that we think about consumer culture, and we're thinking about consumer culture the wrong way. We're using it as consuming. And he made the point that it was really about choice, that for the first time,
Yeah.
you had a mass selection of products where the average person could choose what they wanted. That
Yeah.
just sort of wasn't the case before. Like before the 1920s, maybe you had one kind of peanut butter.
Yeah.
In the 1920s, you had 10, and you're like, well, do we really need 10 types of peanut butter? Well, you can make the argument there, but do you really need, like, where do you kind of draw the line, right? Like on what's a need and what's a want. Like what's a need for someone is maybe a want for someone else. And his point was, if you appreciate making choices in your life, not just like what you buy, but like what clothes you wear or how you choose to identify as a person or whatever the views you want to hold, a lot of that got crystallized during the 1920s. And I thought it was the shortest chapter in his book, very, very short. I'm like, I can do better. There's a lot more in there that he's not getting at that I can help you understand. So once you read Boo's Babe in the Little Black Dress, you'll have a more balanced view of
Yeah.
consumer culture, and you're going
Yeah.
to be a better consumer. You'll
Yeah.
actually know how to buy things better. You're like, oh, I get it, how I'm being sold that.
Yeah.
Got it. Maybe if I think about it a different way, I will not, I can be a smarter customer.
Yeah. No, I
There you
actually
go.
I did. I was kind of joking, but I did actually take that away from the book because it just it like you said, it opened me up to thinking and thinking in different ways when I was purchasing things. And it just I was looking at things through a lens I hadn't looked at before. And it was just because of your book where I was reading about that and options and just I don't know. I did it with food, with clothes, with golf clubs, but it was just yeah, it was like what how do I don't even know how to explain it, but my view, I was looking at it through your book and the lens of just how is this being sold? Is it what I really want? Is it over the top marketing that something that's not what I want? But I would have never, because like you said, I've learned. Yeah, I hear about the Roaring Twenties, and you get little glimpses and little. As someone who doesn't study it, that's about all I know. But reading
Right.
your book gave me a lot of insight information um, that again I just never knew, and I was like, "Wow!" Now I'm thinking about this and a lot of my decisions, and it's very It's interesting to see how again how things have evolved and kind of how that all started in the 20s, over 100 years ago.
That's the thing. I mean, we've been living with that for such a long time. One of the chapters I think is one of the coolest is about uh, chiropractic. The first, the
Yeah,
popularization of chiropractic,
yeah,
and it wasn't like chiropractic as alternative medicine because that had been around for a little while and that was
mhm,
continuing. There was a big push during that time. But what I thought was the most interesting is uh, they came out with a device that you would lease the device as the clinician, as the chiropractor. You needed to lease this device, and then every time you used it on a patient, you made a certain amount of money. And lo and behold, when you went to the chiropractor, well, you obviously needed this treatment, right?
yeah.
Well, how many times have you been to a doctor's office and they've got a new MRI machine, and lo and behold, you need an
You need an
MRI?
MRI. Yep.
It's not to say that like, hey, is it required or is it not required? Is it medically necessary or not medically necessary? It's we do know incentives work. And we tend to think about choice making and consuming on our side, but we don't often think about it like, hey, our doctor is a consumer too, and they're trying to make money. And, I tell the story about LASIK in there and how it's basically the same idea. Like that whole lease model of medical equipment
Yep.
is the same one we use today. And you just have to be aware of that when you're going in. Like, for instance, I went to a clinic in Naples, great clinic, really well regarded folks, and they had just bought a new MRI machine. They had one in the building. And
Yeah.
was it any surprise that I needed an MRI? Like, no, not at all. Like, no, like no surprise at all that I needed that. Uh, so again, it's not that it wasn't medically necessary or whatever. It's just, wow, you just have to think about it because my GP, my general practitioner, they're like, no, we'll just do some blood tests and
Yeah.
we'll kind of look at you. And we have got an ultrasound machine we've got over here. We'll use that.
Yeah.
It's, so anyway, I just find it interesting, like, how incentives are structured, how we make choices. The better, my promise to you reading the book is that when you're done reading it, not only will you enjoy the stories, 26 stories in all, and they're all self-contained, you'll be a better shopper, you'll be a better consumer at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good lesson to take away. And if nothing else, everyone should read it for that specific reason,
Yeah,
especially in
it's not
today's
like any
world.
history book you've ever read. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what I
actually
liked
fun.
about
You'll
it.
actually enjoy it.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it is while it was informational, the stories along with it made it very fun and an enjoyable read. It was all things I didn't know, but it was things I kept reading. I'd find myself kind of laughing, like, man, this makes too much sense. Like this is wild, you know?
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's crazy stories in there, man. Crazy.
yeah, yeah. Well, how does and again, so I haven't read the new book yet. Just got it. You sent it to me. Thank you. And we actually have a couple copies that we'll give away to the Books for Guys community. But how does this one kind of start flowing into, or how does the last book flow into this one? Because
Yeah,
it's
these are kind
two
of
totally
the
different time eras and things going on.
Yeah, I mean, just the psychology was totally different, right? I mean, the Roaring Twenties, they don't call it that because it was a bad time.
Yep.
Things were just so many new inventions, so much new stuff. Basically, our modern world that we think about today, we drive cars, refrigerators, suburbs,
Yeah.
big box stores, all that stuff is created in the 1920s. Well, the 1930s, we have the Great Depression. And what most people think is like, oh, well, heck with all that stuff. We're just trying to kind of find enough to eat. What you realize, though, is that no, actually, the psychology had, once people got a taste for making choices, they didn't just stop doing it, but they made choices about different things. And how they handled the Great Depression was really interesting. For example, most people don't realize that in the 1930s, a refrigerator for the average person cost about $3,000 adjusted for inflation. Major person. It was
Yes.
like a used car. It cost
Yeah.
that much money. Did you know that by 1939, through the worst part of the Great Depression, 65, 70% of homes had purchased one in the 1930s? It went from basically zero to 70%.
Wow.
Why? And really, the question is, when you are thinking about what's the biggest source of, like, if you're worried about losing your job and things are tight, well, you don't
Hmm.
want to be wasting food.
Yeah.
Like, you have to store food. You've got to be able to, like, make one meal last a long time. Or if you make a meal and you don't eat it all, it goes bad. Like,
Yeah.
you throw it away. Like, that doesn't work. So what the refrigerator allowed people to do is something we just take for granted today. Like, oh, I'll just put the leftovers in the fridge and eat them
Yeah.
for dinner or eat them the next day. It was an empowering way that most people could say, hey, I'm not making a frivolous purchase. I'm
Yeah.
making an investment and I'm making a smart buy. So when you think about how people did that, and the decisions were different, but it was really empowering. Most people thought, well, it was only the New Deal, that saved people, or it was food giveaways, or it was government assistance. The reality is that most people didn't get government assistance.
Yep.
Government assistance was very, very limited. Most of it was done by the states. They didn't do a good job.
Hmm.
There was something like people talk about like the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC,
Hmm.
had maybe, I think at peak, like 250,000 people working directly for the government.
Yeah.
There were something like 12 million people unemployed. Just do the math. I mean, the it was never going to be enough to have the government just put everybody to work. Like, we tend to overestimate the role of government during the 1930s. Critically
Yeah.
important for a lot of people, but not the big story. We're
Yeah.
missing the big story because, like, FDR was really dramatic. The New Deal was really dramatic, but the reality is different than what we've been told, and I wanted to tell those stories. I mean, the 20s, 30s, and 40s, I mean, sometimes decades bleed into another.
Yeah.
It's that, but gosh, 1920 to 1929, the stock market crash. 29 to 1939, invasion of Poland. I mean, I mean, it almost doesn't get a lot crisper than that.
Yeah.
So I kind of lucked out.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. Yeah, and it's funny you brought up the freezer and the fridge. I don't remember the show I watched, but I watched it was something about how it got created and how the guy was testing fast freezing versus, gradual freezing and then how it got put into
Oh, that's Clarence
stores.
Birdseye.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's
Okay,
Clarence
yeah, yeah, that's who
Birdseye.
it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny. Like no one had done like frozen food before.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah,
so much that are like, oh, where did that come from? And you start like tracing back a lot of the things that you take for granted today.
yeah.
Most of them were invented in the 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Yeah. It was cool. I remember walking in, my wife was watching it actually, and then all of a sudden I was like, dang, this is crazy. Like how just they were talking about like Tim with fish and different foods, like testing it and how he figured out how it could stay without it being like, soggy from slow, water buildup or whatever. And I was like, this is crazy. And then getting stores to purchase large freezers and such. And then the individual ones for homes and everything. I was like, wow, this is so wild how this because again, I didn't yeah, I take it for granted. I've always had a freezer, so
Of
I didn't know where it
course.
came from.
Yeah, that's I'd recommend for there's a book on Clarence Birdseye. It's actually the guy Birdseye, the vegetables. You've probably seen
Yeah.
him in the freezer. The book is called A Curious Man, and
Okay.
a great biography of Clarence Birdseye. I'd recommend it to the community as well.
Cool.
It's a great book.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll add that because that's one I would definitely enjoy just because I remember that story specifically and
Yeah.
I was
Oh, you'd
very
like it.
interested
Yeah,
in
it's a
it.
good one.
Yeah. Have you always been a writer at heart too, or is that something that you had to learn how to like what's your process when writing these books? And I guess like your first one in particular, like was it something you enjoyed doing? Did you write every day growing up, and then all of a sudden you were able to, put your thoughts into a book, or did you have to make yourself sit down every day and say, "I'm going to write for an hour until I put out what I want"?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I enjoy writing because I write to think. Some people kind of stay in their head. I can't do that. I need to actually, I start in my head kind of thinking about it, but in order to really organize my thoughts and kind of make sure that it's coherent, there's no substitute for getting it out on paper. You can't build, it's very difficult, at least for me, to build
Mhm.
a coherent, logical argument when you can't see it. When you
Yeah,
can see it in front of you, you can depersonalize and say, "Oh, there's a hole right here,"
yeah,
or "There's a leap of logic that doesn't work here." Uh, but there is a craft to writing, and I think as new AI tools make a lot of the writing sound good,
mhm,
the sound good's not the point. I think what people forget about writing is that writing is part art and it's part logic,
mhm,
and it's the craft of writing and the effort that you put into it that helps clarify your thinking. That's the
mhm,
important part. So
yeah,
when I talk with a lot of especially young men talking about like, oh, I hate to write, I'm going to put that in chat gpt and just kind of get something, like, yeah,
yeah,
you're offloading the thinking part. You can't do that.
yeah,
Like, it's not the writing. Like, if you've created enough, you've got a really, really good outline and you've really thought through it and you've kind of built the logical flow. Then if you need a tool to, like, I don't really like the craft of writing, that's cool. That's easy these days, but you can't outsource the thinking. And I think younger people need to put more effort
yeah,
into the thinking part, especially at the early part of their lives, because that's when you're going to be testing. That's when that's going to happen. That's when I got out of college, especially. Uh, yeah, I was a product manager when I started, and it was all about kind of challenging the thinking. It wasn't the craft wasn't a big deal. It was
yeah.
more about how do you think through a problem. That's what you need to work more on.
Yeah. No, and I asked that, and I figured you probably enjoyed writing just based off, like, the stories in your book and the way you write.
I
But I know,
like
like
it. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. But some people I ask, I always kind of ask, like, did you feel a responsibility to write what you wrote because you felt like
mm,
you needed to share that with people because maybe it hasn't been put out there before. You have the knowledge, so maybe you don't enjoy writing, but you've got to write to get the story out. But for you, it does seem like you thoroughly enjoy it. And you can kind of, I mean, as reading the book, it just kind of comes off that way that you enjoy writing about what you do. But it's always a curious question to me because I have asked people and they're like, I don't like writing. I have to make myself get in the zone and figure out how to put my thoughts down on paper. And it's not something that they're happy they wrote a book and whatnot, but they're not necessarily like in love with writing. But you seem to have a passion for it and an enjoyment for it, which is awesome.
yeah, I think there's a craft to it for sure, and uh, I have, like most people, I'll take a look at the some of the AI tools and the writing, and it's what I would say is it elevates bad writing to average. Basically all those tools are kind of a regression to the mean.
Yeah.
So, bad stuff will become average and like clear,
Hmm.
and good stuff will become average and clear.
Yeah.
So, for me, being someone who enjoys the craft is what craft really is isn't doing average stuff.
That's right.
It's saying, okay, how do I understand what average looks like so that I can go 2, 3, 4 standard deviations above that? Because that's not something that any of these tools are designed to do. They can't do that.
Yeah.
But I can. So those tools actually help someone like me a lot because they really distinguish what I do. And when you read my books, you realize the difference. It's
Yeah.
clear when you see it. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Very.
I get it. No one, this isn't, no chatbot could write this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's interesting the way you use it to elevate yourself instead of, a lot of people use it to elevate what they don't know or just kind of get something out there so they can say they did. And like you said, put an average writing out so they don't have to think about it. But you use it to say, I'm going to be better than that and write better than that, which is an approach I haven't heard too many people say, so that's refreshing. And again, you can see it in your writing; it's different, so it's coming from you and your thoughts and the way your style is out there. And so, again, another reason to read your books and enjoy them. But Jason, last question for you, because I ask everybody this, at the
Yeah.
end of every conversation. It's kind of an open-ended question, but what are some of your favorite books? What is a book that's had an impact on you personally? Maybe it's one you've read more than once because you enjoyed it so much, or if someone asked you, "Hey, Jason, what's a good book recommendation?" What's one of your go-tos that you like to mention?
Well, I keep a list, by the way, and I keep a list of books I reread. That's my standard, right? If I reread it, if I've read it multiple times, and there are a few, and they're actually uh, the one. If I'm thinking about the people listening to this right now, all right, a guy, what is a guy gonna want to read? You know, I reread multiple times The Godfather, Mario Puzo's
Ooh,
original book.
okay,
Not the movie. The movie's
yeah,
excellent. The book is excellent in its own way, and the level of detail and the storytelling from so many different perspectives.
yeah,
It is a work of fiction that is really powerful, and there's like
mm,
great storytelling that's like there's fun, but there's like layers underneath it that
yeah,
are going on that are like, wow, that is something I read and reread. So
yeah.
if you're a little bit more on the, I don't want to say like more zen, Ben, I would recommend Persig's book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Okay,
Persig was from St. Paul, Minnesota, someone I know, but many of your listeners will have heard of that particular book.
yeah,
They may not have read it, but they've heard of it, and it is all about kind of the what does it mean to be alive using the motorcycle and maintaining a motorcycle as the metaphor. And it's crazy good. It's so many different levels. And I reread that maybe every 2 or 3 years. I'll kind of
Yeah.
go in. But yeah, I'll send you a list that you can add them to the Books for Guys because they're
Yeah.
all ones that you
Yeah.
wanna they'll want to read.
Yeah. No, please do. Cause again, I'm always interested in you. The way you explained it is what I always try to get out of people is, yeah, what are the books you reread and why did you reread them? Because I have my list too. There's probably 4 or 5 that I read every 2 or 3 years for one reason or another. Um, and if someone else has read a book 2 or 3 times, that's usually one I would like to add to my list if I haven't read them. 'Cause it must be a good book. So, and I'm
Yeah,
into
but I
fiction
think a
and
rule of
nonfiction. So,
me too. Yeah, there are nonfiction books, there are fiction books I read. Uh, there are books from my industry that I reread. Rule of thumb, though, is has it been around more than 10 years? And I know that's tough because, my books haven't been around 10 years. So, I get that. I'm self-aware that I'm recommending that. But like, hey, the books you really want to make sure you read, if people are still reading the book 10 years from now,
yeah,
there's something about it. And you wanna look at that harder. That way, because I mean, how many books do you see? You walk into a bookstore, you're on Amazon, and you're like, they're come and go kind of things, like, oh, it's about some thing that's in the news. Like, don't read that. Like
yeah, yeah.
that's not going to be enjoyable.
Yeah. But the ones that are consistently at the top of the list for years and years and years, and you see them over and over and over again, the titles and the pictures. And you're right, those are usually the ones that have had the biggest impact or people reread and or recommend, and that's a good rule of thumb. I need to add that. I haven't thought of it that way either, but you're 100% correct. But
Yeah,
no, well,
I
Jason,
stole that
yeah.
from another author. So
Yeah. Hey, well, that's fine. Yeah. No, and I'm gonna steal it from you. But no, well, Jason, how can anyone who's interested in reaching you? Obviously, we'll have the books all on the Books for Guys website, and we'll have a link. So if anyone wants to
yeah.
purchase them, we're gonna give a couple away here soon. Actually, by the time this podcast comes out, we'll already have a couple copies in somebody's hands,
Sweet.
which will be fun. But no, if anyone's trying to follow you, are you LinkedIn, Instagram, and anywhere that people can follow your work and writings?
Yeah, the good news is I'm kind of like Tigger. I'm the only one.
You've got your
Jason
website too.
Voiovich is a pretty unique name. So it's jasonvoyovich.com. That's pretty easy. If you search for my name now, some other dude from Alaska comes up because with a similar name, it's not me. I'm not like in jail in Alaska. I can promise you that. Uh, but jasonvoyovich.com. You find me on LinkedIn. You can follow me there, connect with me there professionally. You can find my books on Amazon as
Yep.
well and Audible. If you want to listen to me for 18 hours, you can certainly do that for Marketer in Chief.
Yeah.
All of those are the easiest places to find me. So LinkedIn, Amazon, or my own website at jasonvoyovich.com.
Perfect. Yep. And we'll put all that in the meeting notes or the podcast episode notes if
Awesome.
anyone's interested. And like I said too, if you find the books on Books for Guys, I'll have a link directly to Amazon so you can purchase or find the audio book. Um, but Jason, man, I can't say thank you enough. And obviously, knowing that you have another book coming out at some point, we'll have to do this again and talk about that one. So that's we've got something to look forward to down the road.
Now, it sounds good. There are a lot of guys interested in World War II. Everyone goes through a phase where they're interested in World War II.
Yep.
So it's coming. So that if that's you, that this book is coming for you. Probably later next year, early 2027. So it
Cool.
takes time. These things take time, but
Yes, right.
there's plenty to read in the meantime.
Yeah. No, well, we appreciate it, and obviously look forward to catching up and reading your latest book. But man, thank you so much, Jason. Can't wait till the next book comes out.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.